Kamen Rider Amazons is a reboot in the vein of the early DC Cinematic Universe films, focused on being dark and edgy, but using names, terms, and homages it has no understanding of, and because of that, acts insultingly towards the franchise it is a part of. Amazons is attempting to homage the 1974 series Kamen Rider Amazon, whose title character, Daisuke Yamamoto, was a Japanese man raised from infancy by a tribe in the Amazon, whose home was destroyed by the organization Geddon in pursuit of a magical artifact which could assist them in their world conquest scheme. Heading to Japan to protect the artifact, Daisuke, given the moniker of Amazon by the others as in the early part of the series, Daisuke suffered from an immense language barrier as he didn't know his homeland's language. Fights against Geddon and its successor Garanda to prevent them from using the artifact and safeguard the world from their schemes. The series lasted 24 episodes, but was pre-planned to end at that length due to a network changeover for the series from Mainichi Broadcasting System to Toyo Broadcasting System, which required a clean break in airing. The 1970 series is remembered fondly for its strong storytelling, strong characterization, Daisuke himself being considered as a protective big brother figure among the original 7 Kamen Riders, and having first instance of an enemy turning into an ally, and creative use for effects. For the unawares, nihilistic, and ignorant who put no effort into learning anything about the show, it is solely remembered for the graphic violence that show managed to pull off because of Amazon's more brutal fighting style that literally had him chop up the beastmen that were his enemies and servants to the main villains. This last interpretation is the entirety of what Amazons based itself upon, and thus where it screwed up. Amazons is yet another Kamen Rider in name only, and in Amazon in name only series, making visual and creature thematic cues, but screwing them up entirely. This is due to the production staff having an outright disdain and hatred for the classic Kamen Rider and its narrative themology, recurring motifs, and the ideology of its creator Shotaro Ishinomori. This having been cited in a long-standing interviews from its writer Yasuko Kobayashi and especially the head writer Shinichiro Shirakura. The latter of whom has long stated in his belief that Kamen Riders are the true villains of their own stories, which is fully in conflict with what Ishinomori believed in and wrote, where the divide between the hero and villain is the hero's empathy and morality to connect with others and how a hero fights selflessly for the people. Amazons is a direct result of that divide and failure of understanding by Shirakura. The presumed lead of this series, Amazon Omega, Haruka Misuzawa, ends up being the cause of an escalation of conflict throughout the series with his actions, causing the destruction of everything his deuteragonist, Amazon Alpha Jin Takayama, held dear as Jin attempts to end the threat of the Amazons. Cannibalistic artificial humans, or humans infected with Amazon cells, created by the corrupt organization Nozama Pharmacy, who created these organisms for military purpose. Because of Haruka's actions, the threat of Amazons is not only prevented from being stopped at the end of the first half of the series, season 1, but in the second season, the survivors of it use Jin's wife's body to breed more Amazons and turn their own biology into a virus, to forcibly convert humanity in its entirety into a full race of Amazons, who by their very nature as cannibals, would only result in them devouring each other until everyone and thing is dead. Once more, this is all the fault of Haruka, who comes to be seen as his series' actual villain as he keeps letting other antagonists get away with and pull this crap. The series itself, as a result, is one long idiot plot, with no one asking very obvious questions and doing things that work against their own self-interests and goals. Haruka has no understanding of the real world, only empty-headed idealism that is at odds with the reality he finds himself in, and keeps trying to make that ideal supersede reality, which is another sign of how the series failed in its original market. By and large, the Kamen Rider franchise is about heroes who rebel against a power which is trying to instill its own order that will make the world go wrong, doing so by use of powers who may relate or originate from the evils they face, but for the good of and to protect people from these malicious forces, and guided by their own morality and the acceptance that they have no right to change reality to fit their own desires. By doing this and acting against everyone's best interests, Haruka ends up getting massive amounts of people killed for no reason. This calling back to other characters in productions of Shirokuro's who've done the same thing, who keep saying to the defense, this is what the original Kamen Riders would have done, which is disprove if one bothered to watch those series. The cinematography is also awful, most of it being washed out of color, so it's all just a muddled blur, with the camera failing to keep focus on anything during combat, instead of choosing to change shots after a few seconds, which causes an immense amount of internal continuity errors, or screw up the depiction of scenes entirely. Worse, these screw-ups end up sabotaging the greater narrative. There's a scene where Amazon Omega, riding a specialized combat bike at 10 to 20 miles an hour, rams one of the enemy Amazons, and causes it to explode into a pile of blood and gore in the same vein as if you popped a water balloon. Again, traveling at no faster than 20 miles an hour, a motorcycle collision at that speed, for a normal human being, it's not only survivable, but you can get out of it with a minor bruise or a minor cut. You would not explode into a paste on the street. This, as a result, gave visual and narrative evidence that the threat of Amazons was nothing but pathetic, and their ultimate application of a military weapon worthless as any type of bullet impacts with more than enough force to cause the Amazon forces to explode in the same way, making the threat itself massively overblown. The series head directors Hidenori Ishida and Ryuta Sasaki have since disavowed their work on this series, calling it sabotage by narcissism and ego on the producer's part, as he interrupted the work they were trying to do that was far better than this with his demands. This series did horribly in Japan as well, reviews ending up scathing for the same reasons I've listed above, alongside accusations of it betraying the spirit of the namesake it had, with the show eventually needing to air in a heavily edited form on broadcast before the entire season had finished, being posted to Amazon Prime service to even try to make up for the losses they were seeing, thus making the Prime exclusivity wear out fast, and causes both to lose viewership even more. Amazon's TV broadcast was slaughtered by its time slot running mates such as the 2016 Garo series Makai Retsuden. As such, Amazon Prime did not renew the series past the original 2-season deal, forcing Shirokuro to greenlight on his own terms a movie meant to wrap up the lingering story threads, which realized in May of 2018, and it was a massive financial bomb. And finally, as if this weren't a reason enough to give a picture of how damaging this series was, Shirokuro hijacked finances and resources which were meant to go to the main Kamen Rider entry of the year, Kamen Rider Ghost, and as a result entirely destroyed Ghost as a series. When they were simultaneously in production, Amazons took priority every time, meaning Ghost no longer had the money to pay the head writers, so he mostly left the series, leaving it to stagnate and lose any form of the consistent plot. And by the suit production for Amazons eating up their makers' times, the ones that Ghost needed made were not getting done. The entire time Amazons was filming, Ghost didn't get the suits it needed to even progressing the story. And worse, Kamen Rider has a history of its heroes taking on more and more powerful forms as the series progresses, and the one made for Ghost, Mugen Soul, was not ready by the time they needed it to film its debut episode. According to reliable sources, it wasn't even made yet by the time of shooting, and it did not actually make it into the series as it should have until 3 episodes later. The Kamen Rider franchise suffered massive financial losses because of Amazons, which were only countenanced by the positive sales of the 2016-2017 series Kamen Rider X8, based around doctors combating gaming virus that had managed to cross-propagate into human hosts. It makes sense as it's explained. And the 2017 and 2018's Kamen Rider Build, about the consequences of a scientist opening and experimenting with an artifact found on Mars, which caused an immense devastation all set in motion by an alien despot. I highly recommend skipping this series and watching either of those, or any of the other Kamen Rider series made from 2009 through 2015. They are far more worth your time than this glorified vanity project made by those who hate the franchise.